Hello world, Krista here with Books and Jams, and I am here today to do my March wrap-up. It is not yet March 15th, so I'm still in that late but not too late window. Is that a thing? I'm making it a thing. So here we are with the books that I read in the month of March. So I'm just going to start with the two nonfiction books that I read, both of which are very, very short. Our Broken Hallelujahs was written by my cousin Rebecca Bertram. A lot of it is very personal to anybody who has ever experienced trauma of any kind, whether trauma of sickness or trauma of things that other people have done to you or trauma of our own past mistakes, and how God reaches into those traumas to heal our brokenness and deal with us in the midst of that brokenness. This was very emotional in a lot of ways because it does ask you to really think about those places in our lives that are broken, and all of us have them in some form or other. The book is set up to really be used as a Bible study or with a group of people. I still found that I got stuff out of it by reading it just on my own. I did not do this with a group. I'm so proud of my cousin for writing it. There's a lot of deep things that she addresses in here, and I really like the stories of some other people as well that she includes that have experienced some trauma and share their story and share how God reached into their brokenness to meet them where they are and help them to begin the process of healing and to still show them his love. It's in those times that we're broken and hurting that we really often feel God is silent or not with us, or where is he, or how can a good God let this happen? And so this book really addresses some of those questions and those very real fears and doubts that we all experience during those moments. I really liked the way that this made me think about those things. I guess I don't really like thinking about those things, but it's good to process and work through some of that. So that was one of the first books I read in the month of March. The other nonfiction that I read for work is Kidman, Reformation, a no-nonsense look at discipling the next generation. And this is written by the Tornado Twins. I work with the kids at my church, as you probably know, and this was just a book for work, really challenging people who work with kids to think outside the box and not just do things because it's tradition. And how do we connect with kids in this generation and reach them? It was a quick read. It was helpful to get me thinking about things at work and the reasons behind why we do things, but I don't need to talk about it too long here. The book that I started in February and finished at the beginning of March was my BookTuber Recommends pick for February. That was recommended by Katie at Life Between Words, and that is The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. And I read most of this in February, but I did finish it in March. This is the story of Laurel, who when she is about 16, witnesses an incident between her mother and someone else, and it really changes the course of her life in a way. It affects her for the rest of her life. The book goes between a couple different time periods. It goes between that time period when she's 16 and then in the current day, which is when her mom is about 80 something and she's an older woman. And then it also goes way back to when her mom was a teenager and kind of looks at the history there. So I liked the jumping around between time zones. It wasn't confusing at all, and it really told a good story. Kate Morton really tells a good story. There's a lot of mystery of what really happened, what did Laurel really see, and why was that important. And things aren't always the way that they seem, and she tries to get to the bottom of all of it. I did peek. I know in my bookish confessions on Friday 5 I told you that I look ahead. I wish I didn't in this book. I can't believe it, but I did peek ahead to the end and learned the big twist before I was there. I still went back and I still finished, and it was still very good, but I'm so bummed that I did that. Ridiculous, Krista. So yeah, there's a bit of a twist at the end that I knew something was up, but I didn't know what it was going to be. So I kind of ruined that for myself, which is a bummer. There were a few parts in this one that were a little slower. I think I just am in a phase where I haven't been reading a lot of chunkier books, and so those points that get a little more descriptive or a little slower paced at times, I had a harder time getting through them. So there were a few times, and because I was excited for the other books I had already picked out to read in March, that I just kind of wanted to finish this one. So I did. I finished it and I really enjoyed it, and I look forward to reading more from her. The reason I was excited to finish The Secret Keeper was because I had chosen Station 11 as my Goodreads read-along group pick for the month of March, and I really wanted to get to this book. So I'm very thrilled that I finally picked it up for myself. So this is a post-apocalyptic book. We get glimpses of what life was like before this big pandemic flew comes and wipes out the majority of the Earth population. But then it travels 20 years post-flu into how things are, and we follow mainly this troupe of actors and musicians who travel around, I believe, like Lake Michigan area, and perform Shakespeare and play in this orchestra. We also learn what happened directly after the flu. This book does hop around quite a bit, and at the beginning that was slightly confusing, but as I got into the flow of the story, I really liked it. Emily St. John Mandel really has a way of weaving things together. It wasn't an actual mystery, but there was this air of mystery that kind of was an undercurrent, and in one town that they show up, it was just so creepy. I could hear that suspenseful music if it were a show on TV or a movie. And I just kind of was on the edge of my seat wondering what was going to happen a couple times, especially nearer to the beginning before we really kind of understood what was going on. I loved it. I am not a fan of being scared, but I did like that just enough of that creepy feeling that I got a couple times in this book. It really was so good. I really loved this book. It was really good. I loved it. Then it was Rita Rama, and during Rita Rama, I was sick. During most of March, I was sick. I'm still not fully over it. I had pneumonia, but it wasn't diagnosed until way late, so I just suffered through. So during Rita Rama, I was pretty sick, but I did finish Illuminae by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. I took off the orange cover. It was a quick read in a sense that I got through it quickly, but I didn't feel connected to the characters and I didn't really like it. Then I read The Martian, which was pleasingly the opposite. I did fly through it a lot faster than I thought I would because it is so science fiction, and there is a lot of science in this science fiction. That it's about this man, Mark Watney, who gets stranded on Mars by the rest of his team, and he has to survive for a very long time. And it's fantastic. His sense of humor is great. I really, really enjoyed this book. I read that during Rita Rama, and then near the end of Rita Rama, I started Brooklyn, and I finished it after the readathon was over. But this is by Colm Toibin. It's a coming-of-age story of this girl named Eilish, which I learned by watching the movie last week. So she comes over on her own. She's pretty naive and pretty brave in her own way, but just naive is the best way I can describe it. Just doesn't understand things all the time. Seems to be very passive, but really grows up a lot, and I loved the character development. This was a slower paced book. Not a lot really happens that keeps you on the edge of your seat, but I really liked the writing. I liked the flow of the book, and I liked watching Eilish grow up. I thought I was going to hate the ending. It looked like it was going in a direction that I didn't like, but it made sense as she just was coming into her own, and then it ended up with her making the right choice, which I was glad about. The movie also had that same kind of feel. It was on the slower side in that not very much happens. I just liked getting to see in person this character that I just had read about. I thought it was a quiet but beautiful movie. I did enjoy it very much. The final book that I read during the month of March, even though I finished it on April 1st, I'm counting it in March because I have to return it to the library and I'm not holding it for 30 more days. That is Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. And this was my BookTuber Recommends pick for the month of March by Jordan from J Bookish. And I'm so glad that I picked this up. You have probably seen this all over BookTube. When I heard about this book, I always heard that it's about these two sisters and then each of the generations from the family tree as the book goes on, which is true. But when I hear two sisters, I think of two sisters who kind of grow up together, and that's not the case. These two sisters never actually knew each other. Each chapter kind of flip-flops between those two sisters' family tree. So throughout the course of this book, the one sister marries a slave trader and her family line stays in Africa for most of the generations. And so we learn about West African history from the slave trade, colonialization, tribal wars, all of that. And then the other sister is sold into slavery, so in the first chapter gets taken to America. In that family tree, we're learning about slavery and civil rights movement and Black Panthers, and we learn about African American history here in the United States. So there's a lot of history, a lot of learning, a lot of really terrible ways that people treated other people, both in Africa and here in America. And so some of the chapters were just so difficult to swallow, but their history, I mean, things like this happen to people all the time, which was horrifying. I loved how the author really writes so well, and I felt connected to almost every chapter that I read. I wanted more. I wanted to know more about these people and how they survived and what happened next. And I think that that's a real testament to her writing. This is a debut novel, which is amazing to me. I hope she writes more. It was very difficult, very hard, but beautifully written, and really made me feel a lot of things and think a lot of things. I still have a hard time talking about it, but I did enjoy it. This was a fantastic book, and I think it's really important, and you learn a lot without realizing that you're learning a lot. I mean, I guess you kind of realize it, but yeah, this was a great book. I think you should read it. If you haven't already. I'm one of the last, I think. Here are the 8 books and a movie that I completed in the month of March and a little bit of April on this one. I would love to hear your thoughts on any of these books, any that stand out to you, any that you haven't read that maybe you're thinking about reading now. Let's chat down in the comments and give me a big thumbs up if you like this video. Push the little bell to get notified of when I make new videos, and I'll be coming at you soon with a new one. Bye!